Pakistan's PM message. So who's writing for Shehbaz Sharif? And what's Pakistan's stature?
There
Here.
are some of us in the United States that wish somebody would write Trump's tweets instead of him, or at least break both of his thumbs so he can't tweet quite as quickly as he does. What's most interesting to me about this tweet, though, is it refers to efforts for a peaceful settlement are progressing with the potential to lead to substantial agreement. And yet this was grabbed and became Trump has agreed to the 10 Iranian points. This isn't close to an agreement or a reflection that an agreement has been reached. So I think that's probably even more significant about this text than the clearly indication that somebody else wrote it. It's not really a definitive statement in the slightest. So again, not only do you have the Iranians rushing out saying Trump has agreed to our 10 points, none of which are agreeable to him. It's the same points they've been making from the beginning with no acceptance. And that there are sources in Iran who are indicating that 12 or so of the 15 points that the U.S. is pushing are actually more in the agreement stance, and that something can be worked out if you get, again, the right people at the table who can then hopefully actually implement whatever agreement gets put in place.
Well, absolutely. Interesting points that many of our guests have actually highlighted in this post itself, the tone of the context, and of course the language and the grammar, but more importantly, draft and Pakistan's PM message. All of that highlights that the Pakistanis are just embarrassing themselves trying to take credit. But every time they get credit, they also end up embarrassing themselves further. Now, Israel has actually backed America's decision for a temporary ceasefire in Iran, but says that ceasefire does not mean, and this is the latest that's just come, ceasefire does not include Lebanon. Now, so already conditions are being put and imposed. So this is the latest that's come in. AFP has put this out, and AFP says that Israel backs U.S. decision for temporary ceasefire in Iran. The Prime Minister's office, or Prime Minister Netanyahu's office, has said that, but adds that ceasefire does not include Lebanon. So we saw the Hezbollah's post just a short while ago, and the Hezbollah was quite aggressive in its position. Israel is saying that if there is a near threat to me, I'm not going to come all the way as far as Iran, but I'm going to continue to ensure that Hezbollah don't pose a threat. Just like we acted against the Hamas, we're going to continue to act against the Hezbollah. Steve, will this be okay, or will this perhaps further convolute this entire ceasefire process, or complicate, if I may say that?
Well, the fact that as soon as the ceasefire was announced, you saw a barrage of missiles and cluster bombs targeting Israel, missiles targeting the other allies in the Middle East, whether it's UAE, Bahrain, and others. They were getting struck continuously after this deal was supposedly agreed to. And I think even more importantly, one of the provisions in the 10-point plan that the Iranians say has been agreed to means they will control their proxies and that their proxies won't continue attacks. So clearly, again, whoever's trying to strike a deal doesn't have the power to implement it within Iran. And I think the infighting in Iran is going to continue, and it's going to continue to be very difficult to decide who do you talk to, and if somebody reaches an agreement, can they actually empower themselves to make it stick?
Right, but the larger question, Ambassador Ashok Sajanar, is if Iran doesn't back off from its proxies, if it continues to arm and empower its proxies, Israel faces the existential threat. So you cannot say the resistance axis no one will wage a war against the resistance axis, but the resistance axis can continue to wage a war. What kind of a negotiation is that, and a condition is that?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think these are all the issues that will be hammered, that will be discussed at the negotiating table. And definitely, if you want to put a pause, if you want to put a stop, then of course Iran has to give this commitment first that the Hezbollah's rockets and missiles launches against Israel, they are going to stop, because unless that stops, how can you expect Israel? Israel is totally exposed. It's vulnerable to the attacks from Hezbollah just across its northern border, north of the Litani River. So definitely, this is sine qua non of this even a temporary partial agreement going forward to some extent.